Global politics and international relations is everywhere in our daily lives, from the food we buy at the store to the cars we drive and the pop culture we consume. Hey everyone, I'm Noah Zerby. I'm a professor of international relations at Humboldt State University, and today I'm counting down my top 10 movies that I think help illustrate or explain concepts in international relations. These are films that I regularly use either in whole or in part when I teach my introductory international relations course. But before getting down to my top 10, I want to clarify what this list isn't. First, I don't include documentaries here, only fictional movies that I use to illustrate concepts and theories in international relations. Second, I don't include movies that are primarily war films. Now, that's not to say that war isn't a central part of international relations or that there aren't some really powerful films on the topic. Films like Full Metal Jacket, Saving Private Ryan, Lone Survivor, and 1917, for example, do an amazing job of illustrating the horrors of war. But in most of them, there's surprisingly little consideration of the political dynamics surrounding the conflict. Again, I think it'd be easy to come up with a good list of films that fall into this category, but I'll leave that for another day. Third, I don't look at films that are primarily international in the sense that they look at the politics of other countries. Again, there's an amazing list of films that fall into this category, but those kinds of movies are better suited for a list of films for comparative politics courses, and that's not my focus here. Finally, I'm not trying to create a list of the best films, but the films that best illustrate the concepts and theories in international relations and global politics. I'm looking at movies that demonstrate those concepts, theories, and issues in global politics in a particularly entertaining way. I'm looking for entertaining films, but the entertainment value is secondary to the ability to present those theories and concepts. Now, I'll caution you that there are some minor spoilers here. If you've not seen one of these films, you may want to skip that section. I've included chapter markers for easier navigation, but with that said, let's get started. At number 10, I have Sergio, the 2020 Netflix film starring Wagner Moura as Sergio de Mello, the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights and the Special Representative to Iraq. The film intersperses a series of flashbacks in order to explore the career of de Mello, affectionately known as Sergio to his colleagues. De Mello had an illustrious career, much of which is highlighted in the film, that included posts helping negotiate peace agreements and post-conflict reconciliation and reconstruction on behalf of the United Nations in places like Cambodia, Lebanon, Kosovo, East Timor, and Iraq. De Mello was widely viewed as a leading contender to become Secretary General of the United Nations before his death in Iraq. While the film certainly has some problems, I think it offers some unique insights into the tensions between the United States and the United Nations in Iraq. It also presents the challenges of nation building, of post-conflict reconciliation, through a very human lens. And for that reason, it's my choice for number 10. The Hunger Games is my choice for number 9. The Hunger Games is a dystopian series consisting of 4 films based on a trilogy by Suzanne Collins. The film stars Jennifer Lawrence as Katniss Everdeen, a 16-year-old girl who lives in one of the poorest regions of Panem. As punishment for a previous rebellion known as the Dark Days, the capital holds a lottery each year where one boy and one girl between the ages of 12 and 18 are chosen from each of the 12 districts at random to compete to the death in a public arena, all of which is televised. The lone winning tribute in the annual battles, called the Hunger Games, is showered with gifts and riches. Now, over the course of the 3 books and the 4 movies, Katniss becomes the symbol of the rebellion movement and later of the Civil War, which attempts to overthrow the capital and establish a different regime. The books and films are entertaining in their own right, but they do an amazing job of highlighting the questions around the nature and function of government, of social justice and rebellion, and of human rights. The games themselves echo realism's assumptions about the nature of the international system and can thus be used as an engaging starting point to thinking about dynamics of conflict and cooperation, of self-interest, of war, and all of that in the international system. And I've also used examples from the film to teach various elements of game theory. Closer to contemporary events, the three-fingered salute used to express unity with the rebellion movement in the movie was even adopted in real-life protests in Thailand in 2020 and in Myanmar in 2021. And for all of these reasons, The Hunger Games is my choice for number 9. At number 8, I have Invictus. Invictus is a biographical sports drama set in the immediate post-apartheid period of South Africa's history and is based on the book Playing the Enemy. Matt Damon plays the role of Francois Pienaar, the captain of the South African national rugby team known as the Springboks, and Morgan Freeman plays the role of Nelson Mandela. The film is based on the true story of Mandela's efforts to move towards national racial reconciliation through sport. The racial divisions in South Africa ran deep, all the way down to the level of sport. Rugby was the sport favored by white South Africans, while soccer was favored by black South Africans. And in the story, the Springboks advanced to the Rugby World Cup. The country gradually unifies around them as they do, and they become a symbol of the movement towards racial reconciliation and unification of South Africa. Now, there have been some amazing films out of South Africa highlighting the horrors of apartheid and the struggle for human and civil rights. But what I really appreciate about Invictus is how powerfully it demonstrates the idea of nations as imagined communities which are built around a shared sense of identity, rooted in numerous social, linguistic, religious, cultural, political, and even sporting markers. It's also a relatively easy way to integrate discussions of reconciliation in global politics, and that's why Invictus is my choice for number 8. My choice for number 7 is Paradise Now, a 2005 psychological drama. The film won the Golden Globe for Best Foreign Language Film, making it the first Palestinian film to do so. The film stars Kais Nashif as Saeed and Ali Suleiman as Khalid, two Palestinian friends who are recruited to be suicide bombers in Tel Aviv, Israel. The film follows them on their final days before the attack, tracing their preparations, their thoughts and second thoughts, all the way up to the moment of the attack. The film sparked considerable political controversy when it was released, and it's been celebrated both for the unsettling representations it presents of terrorism and terrorists, as well as being criticized for normalizing suicide attacks and humanizing terrorists. From my perspective, the film provides a really powerful way to interrogate terrorism in the context of global politics. It certainly does humanize Saeed and Khalid and gives the viewer a sense of both their individual motivation and the broader political and economic context that put them into a position where a suicide attack would even be contemplated. But it does so, I think, in a way that doesn't glorify or celebrate. As such, it raises a number of questions around the nature of asymmetrical warfare, human rights and terrorism, and can be used as a good entry point to broader discussions outside the specific question of Palestine. And that's why I chose Paradise Now as my choice for number 7. At number 6, I have Lumumba, a biopic that explores the life of the Pan-Africanist leader Patrice Lumumba. The film was one of Haitian director Raoul Peck's more well-known works, which also include films like Sometime in April about the Rwandan genocide, I Am Not Your Negro, the story of James Baldwin, The Young Karl Marx, and more recently, Exterminate All the Brutes, an HBO series on European colonialism. Lumumba is told from the perspective of Patrice Lumumba, beginning at the end of his life, with his assassination and the assassination of his compatriots Joseph Akiko and Maurice Mapulo. But it then rewinds and follows Lumumba's rise from a young beer salesman in the capital of the Congo to becoming the first prime minister of the newly independent Democratic Republic of the Congo. Along the way, it explores a number of themes around decolonization, nation and state building, policies of divide and rule, and the ideology of Pan-Africanism, all situated in a Cold War context where the United States and the Soviet Union are competing to establish new client states in Africa. Because of all of this, it's my choice for number 6. At number 5, I have The Battle of Algiers, a joint Italian-Algerian war film from 1967. The Battle of Algiers focuses on the fighting between Algerian rebels and French military forces during Algeria's war for independence from France. The film is widely viewed as a cinematographic masterpiece. It's filmed in a newsreel, black and white style, giving the film a feel of historical authenticity, almost like a documentary. It also presents an unflinching view into the uglier side of both guerrilla conflict and counterinsurgency, as both sides commit atrocities against the civilian population in order to strengthen or further their own positions. The independence movement engages in acts of terror, detonating explosive devices at cafes in order to demoralize Europeans living in Algeria, and security forces engage in torture and murder in order to quell the rebellion. While the Battle of Algiers focuses on a specific historical moment, namely that of Algeria in the late 1950s, the reach of the film is far, far broader. The film was said to have inspired soldiers and other national struggles during the era of decolonization, and was believed to help inform the struggles of groups like the Black Panthers, to the Irish Republican Army, to the Palestine Liberation Organization. It was also used by U.S. military commanders to train troops undertaking similar counterinsurgency strategies and efforts in Iraq. And for all of these reasons, it's my choice for number 5. My choice for number 4 is Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb, more commonly known as just Dr. Strangelove. This classic dark comedy satirizes Cold War tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union. Directed by Stanley Kubrick, Dr. Strangelove follows the deranged general Jack the Ripper, who unilaterally orders a nuclear strike against the Soviet Union, and then the efforts of President Mifflin and his advisors to stop the strike. Despite its age, Dr. Strangelove remains one of the most powerful and critical takes on nuclear politics and nuclear weapons theory, and does a fantastic job capturing the zeitgeist of the Cold War era. The film directly addresses a number of concepts, including mutually assured destruction, the missile gap, massive retaliation, and flexible response. It also highlights many of the critiques offered by feminist theorists, particularly those raised by Carol Cohn in her classic article, Sex and Death in the Rational World of Defense Intellectuals, which makes a great accompanying reading for this film. That's why Dr. Strangelove is my choice for number 4. At number 3, I have Eye in the Sky. Eye in the Sky is a British thriller starring Helen Mirren and Alan Rickman in his final role. The film largely centers on the debate between high-ranking British military and government officials on whether or not to launch a drone strike from an American drone flying above a suspected terrorist leader's safe house in Nairobi, Kenya. The problem presented is that the terrorists are clearly in the final stages of preparing to launch a suicide bombing, but any attack from the drone will likely come with severe collateral damage. The film explores the ethical challenges of drone warfare and presents a really unflinching view into the often unforeseen consequences, particularly to civilian populations, of this type of asymmetric warfare. In many ways, Eye in the Sky is a modern-day retelling of Dr. Strangelove, albeit without the satire and comedy. But because of this, I think it sometimes connects with students today in a way that Dr. Strangelove sometimes doesn't. And for that reason, it's my choice at number 3. At number 2, I have District 9, a 2009 South African science fiction film directed by Neil Blomkamp and telling the story of apartheid through the lens of an alien invasion. Unlike traditional alien invasion films, the aliens in District 9, which are derogatorily referred to as prawns by humans, depicts the aliens as refugees who crash land on Earth. The aliens are quickly cordoned off into District 9, essentially a segregated zone outside of Johannesburg restricted to aliens. District 9 works on many, many levels. It's an obvious parable for apartheid, with District 9 essentially a retelling of District 6, an inner-city residential area in Cape Town whose black residents were forcibly relocated to Cape Flats in the 1970s in order to maintain racial segregation in the town in South Africa. District 9 also works as a cautionary tale against racism and xenophobia, and the challenges faced by migrants and displaced persons today. And finally, it's also a cautionary tale against the increasing power of multinational corporations and private military contractors. It's an innovative retelling of the classic alien invasion genre that powerfully addresses a number of themes in international relations, and for all of those reasons, it's my choice for number 2. Before getting to my number 1, I wanted to share a few excellent films that didn't quite make my top 10 list. These are all outstanding movies and worthy of watching in their own right, they just didn't quite crack my top 10. Widely considered one of the best superhero films of all times, Batman: The Dark Knight puts Batman, played by Christian Bale, against his arch-nemesis the Joker, played by Heath Ledger, in his final role, and a role for which he posthumously won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. While it's an entertaining movie in its own right, the film can also be viewed as a treatise on the balance between civil liberties and security, as well as a parable for the global war on terror, a theme which President Obama explicitly evoked in his discussion of the Islamic State. And the film also contains one of the best examples of the prisoner's dilemma I've ever seen. Both Canadian Bacon and Wag the Dog are political comedies which center on presidents using foreign crises to deflect against domestic political scandals. Canadian Bacon was directed and produced by Michael Moore and boasts an all-star ensemble cast that includes Alan Alda, John Candy, Rhea Perlman, and others. In Canadian Bacon, the President of the United States declares war on Canada in order to give the American people something to focus on after the collapse of the Soviet Union. In Wag the Dog, political advisors to the president urge him to declare war against Albania after a sex scandal threatens to derail his presidency. Again, the film includes an all-star cast, including Dustin Hoffman, Robert De Niro, Anne Heche, Woody Harrelson, Kristen Dunst, and others. Wag the Dog was widely viewed as a fictionalized retelling of the Clinton presidency. Both films raise themes of diversionary war theory, just war theory, and can be used to illustrate constructivism in the context of international relations. Flame is a controversial Zimbabwean film that traces the struggle of two young peasant girls who leave their homes in order to fight with the Zimbabwean African National Liberation Army in the country's struggle to end white minority rule and establish multiracial democracy. The film's title or character, Florence, who goes by the name Flame, experiences many trials during the war, only to become disillusioned with the post-independence government of Robert Mugabe. Flame offers an incredibly powerful take on the African independence struggles of the 1960s and 1970s. It illustrates concepts from civil war and the struggles of decolonization. And it doesn't hold back in its criticism of the post-independence states' processes of state building and nation building. It also provides an excellent illustration of many concepts from feminist theories of international relations. Siege at Jadotville is a 2016 film that tells the story of an Irish army unit's deployment as UN peacekeeping forces in Katanga, a province in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, in September of 1961. While the film can be viewed as a simple war action film, it can also be viewed more broadly as it illustrates some of the challenges of decolonization, the nature of proxy conflicts between the United States and the Soviet Union during the Cold War, and many of the challenges faced by United Nations peacekeeping operations. Independence Day was a summer blockbuster film in 1996. The movie tells the story set over a period of several days, culminating on July 4th, of an alien attack against Earth. Again, the film boasts an all-star ensemble cast that includes Will Smith, Bill Pullman, Jeff Goldblum, Mary McDonald, and many, many others. Independence Day can be viewed fairly straightforwardly as a disaster or alien invasion movie, but it also raises questions around the rules of war, asymmetrical warfare, and a host of others. And President Thomas Whitmore's speech extolling a unified global resistance to the common enemy can be used to illustrate concepts of collective security and liberal international relations theory, as well as balance of power and other issues. My choice for the best film in international relations, and one that I've used countless times in my teaching, either in total or in short clips, is 13 Days. 13 Days was released in the year 2000 and stars Kevin Costner as Kevin O'Donnell, special assistant to President John F. Kennedy during the Cuban Missile Crisis. The film traces the political decision-making process from the discovery of Cuban missiles on the island on October 16th through the final resolution of the crisis on October 29th, 1962. While the movie takes some dramatic license, particularly around the role of O'Donnell, it nevertheless represents a fairly accurate retelling of the decision-making process within the Kennedy White House and in the context of the Cuban Missile Crisis more generally. As a lens to consider international relations, 13 Days has lots of insights. It's a useful window into considering the Cold War context or the Cold War period in general, and it also offers some real insights into nuclear deterrence theory, brinksmanship, the intersection of domestic and international politics. It's an excellent accompaniment to Graham Allison's Essence of Decision-Making, as it offers clear illustrations of the various foreign policy decision-making models he examines in the text. It highlights the challenges of standard operating procedure, the nature of organizational politics and bureaucratic decision-making, irrationality, rationality, and policy-making during a crisis. And it's just an entertaining movie. And for that reason, it's my choice for the best film in international relations. So what do you think? Did I hit your favorite? Did I miss an obvious and exceptional movie? Let me know what you think I should watch next and possibly add to my list in the comments section below. If you like what you saw here, hit like and subscribe. And while you're at it, be sure to check out my list of the top 10 television series in global politics. Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a good day.